So I'm building a house with my dad on land that I grew up on, starting a long-term investment with a winery, and learning about Bitcoin all at the same time. Having my brain break coming out of it now as a winemaker selling his wine for Bitcoin.
With the Bitcoin Treasury and the attitude, you're incentivized to just keep doing the right thing, especially as the currency is debased and your cost of operating is going up on an annual basis.
Yeah, Bitcoin's just sitting there for anyone. And in the wine world, you kind of have two choices. You can go big or you can stay small. In the middle ground, you die.
There's a clip with Trump talking about, and you could buy things with Bitcoin.
It takes a lot of pressure off the dollar, and it's a great thing for our country.
So we're in the midst of some big change.
We're part of this fourth turning, right? Things are going to get so bad over the next 5 to 10 years. Something really bad is going to happen because of these rotations through history. What if it doesn't?
That's where I'm at. I'm going to stop focusing on that.
I'd take the weakest bull market ever in exchange for the weakest fourth turning ever.
Which sounds crazy to people who haven't gone down the rabbit hole. All right, cool. Well, Ben, glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Yes. And so I discovered you on Twitter, and you have some wicked memes that you post. And you're a winemaker who's selling your wine online to Bitcoiners now.
Yep. That's what I do.
Yeah. And so as a cultivator, I've found what you're doing to be pretty fascinating, and I got a lot of respect for it. I don't know a whole lot about cultivating wine. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to dig a little bit on that. And so to begin, how did you get into growing grapes and producing wine?
My dad always wanted to have his own farm and grow all his own food for retirement. And so when I was 8, we moved from Austin, Texas to a small town in Western Colorado. Dad bought a farm, started planting everything to grow for himself. And then he cut out a huge block of apple trees we had that weren't producing. And his buddy, who was a winemaker who grew Pinot Noir, said, if you plant these grapes, I'll buy them from you in 4 years when they start producing.
Nice. How many acres?
So that was 3.5 acres. And he did that, got a first production of grapes maybe 3 years in. And the winemaker said, no, I don't want the grapes. They're not mature enough. I'll buy them next year. I'll show you how to make wine this year. And thus, my dad, being a builder, built houses his whole life, wanted to grow all his own food. He just never sold the grapes and just started making wine.
Wild.
So he just, full on garage wine setup. My dad, I swear, has no sense of taste or smell, and somehow ended up making wine that high-level somms were amazed by.
What's a high-level somm?
So sommelier, someone who basically studies wine, usually works in restaurants to serve wine, really knows wine well. To a level that honestly I can't even perceive how they can understand it to this level. No, I know my grapes well, I know my wine well, but to be able to drink a wine, know where it comes from, kind of know what year, how old, the producer, all these different insane wine nerd stuff. They're professionals at that. So this specifically one bought my dad's wine. This is out of a 2-year window that my dad had enough to sell. And
this is year 5 or something.
So this is 2014 maybe. So a lot of years in, he'd been making wine, mostly enough just for himself, and then had a couple bumper crops where he kind of needed to get a liquor license to be able to produce that much.
Okay.
And this sommelier was wrote my dad a letter, a full-page letter, about how great the wine was, and then moved to my town because he finally found a place in Colorado that produced incredible wine.
That's wild. And so is it elevation related?
There's a lot of factors informing the terroir.
Yeah.
But basically that setup, that years before I got into it was oh, wow, okay, there's something special about these grapes, because my dad maybe is doing something great, but not knowingly, he's just going for it.
Yeah. Did he have a farming or cultivation background of any sort, or it was just a passion to get some land and grow some food? And he ripped, and it was 3.5 acres that the vineyard is.
Yeah.
So he ripped out a bunch of apple trees and planted these things. And did he do anything particular to the soil, or was it just kind of?
So where I'm farming is at 5,700 feet, and we are on river terrace soil. So when we dig down, there's spaces where there's river rocks, like an old river bottom.
Yep.
But generally, you're kind of in flood terrain, so it's all soil, it's all mud deposited from the river for thousands of years. So like we're in a spot where there is tons of topsoil, basically.
Yeah, very mineral rich, huh?
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, so the grapes aren't necessarily struggling a ton, which is huge I think in Europe. There's a lot of places that like really benefit from the grapes. Really benefit from there not being a ton of soil. The grapes really struggle. But what we kind of do is we're in this really deep soil, so near the river.
Yep.
And so we don't have to water much. So we're kind of forcing the grapes to struggle a little bit in the water realm.
Yep.
It's a high desert, so we get these really hot days, cool nights, and we're not watering a ton. And when a lot of vineyards like in California are drip irrigating, because you need to conserve water. And so what you get there is, 20, 40 years of this water coming in the exact same spot.
Yes.
Over and over.
Well, and then mineral depletion, because the same crop is eating all the things that it wants over a long period of time.
Yeah. So you look at the plant's incentives, the root ball is going to be mostly there. There's going to be some expansion, but it's mostly there. And then you deplete the soil. So then you fertilize it. And eventually your wine kind of just becomes the fertilizer that you're putting on, which there's a lot of homogenization of wine beyond in the cellar once the wine's being made. But that at its core is an insane homogenization of the actual flavor profile of the terroir of the grapes. So you're losing a lot of, a lot of the value in wine is drinking from places that there's value in wine if it's just a good tasty beverage. But a lot of the value when it comes to high-end wine and specifically like people really going down the wine rabbit hole is drinking wine from all these different places and tasting the difference. Like it could be the same clone. It could be the exact same grape genetically.
Yes.
And taste completely different based off of, an innumerable number of factors.
Yeah, you're gonna have a different phenotypic expression from the same genetics, given what climate it's in, what mineral profile is in the soil, what microorganisms are in the soil. And so it makes me think, I wonder if the fact that you hadn't grown wine there, you have this very mineral rich soil, you don't have to water it a whole lot. And in cannabis production, I know that I can coax out I can get the plant to exhibit generative physiology by stressing it with water. And so it makes me wonder if there's a similar thing there with the grapes. By not flooding it all year long, you're going to pull more of that generative Q or get more of the generative Q out of the plant, and you're going to get more of those flavors or that I don't know, because the berry, it's a grape. The grape is the reproductive organ of the plant, right? So I think that generative Q is probably part of what is causing the success there. Totally.
The flavor is the ripening. So if you're pumping that grape full of water, it's going to be a lot more diluted. And if you stress the grape, it's going to ripen differently a little earlier. And we are on the edge of basically we pick because it's going to freeze tomorrow.
Right.
Every year.
Yeah. So, and then the season changing really rapidly like that is forcing the plant to finish faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So during the summer, like I said, hot days, cool nights, that increases the acidity and I think brings out the fruitiness. You can get a lot of mineral wines or more earthy wines, but in Colorado at high elevation, you're going to get a little bit more fruit forward, expressive wines, vibrant. And so I think that in the wine industry, I was talking about this homogenization of flavor through the growing. There's also in the winemaking, because I'll give just a general history. I don't totally know the deep dive specifics, but there's this influential wine writer named Robert Parker who came out with a scale, Robert Parker scale, to rate wines on 100 points. And he became so influential that everyone started making their wines just to score high on his.
Wow.
And so that's his taste profile influencing everyone. And so if you score the difference between like a 90 and a 95 is, I mean, for big wineries, hundreds of millions of dollars. So you start hiring people to make wine to do well for the Robert Parker scale, which is this one uniform set of tastes to do well. So everyone searches for that. And I find a lot of wine is that almost influences the way people like wine, because it's what you see, it's what you start liking. So then people more and more start moving towards that, where Colorado is not known for wine.
Yeah,
right?
when I discovered you, I was like, wow, this is an interesting thing. You know, being in Northern California myself, when I drive to the Bay Area, I'm going through Napa Valley and looking at all these vineyards.
Yeah. So if you're a Cab Sauv grower in Napa, if you produce something that's not the quintessential Napa Cab, what's your market? Because you're producing a Napa Cab. If people are buying a Napa Cab, they want it to taste like a Napa Cab, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so being in Colorado, this place that is emerging, there's been the first grapes were planted in the 70s, about an hour from me. And then in my town, which is the highest elevation wine region in North America, that really started kind of late 90s, started becoming a thing. And when you think of wine regions, it takes decades to establish, figure out what grows well, figure out everything. Because, I mean, you plant a vineyard, you probably don't get grapes for 3 years, maybe the fourth. Let's say you're growing red wine. You want to make a high-end red wine. One, your vineyard's too young to really do that for a decade.
Why is that? Why is the first year the grape's not good enough to make wine? But why does it get better over time?
The vine's going to really mature. It's going to send the roots further down. You're going to get a lot, like if you're growing it like I'm saying, where you aren't drip irrigating and you're forcing the roots to go super far down, you're getting a lot more connection to the actual land.
And are these seeds or these clones?
You're generally planting clones. So you're
right. So they don't have the tap root.
So there's differentiation within grape roots. There is taproot and there is I'm forgetting the name, but this is kind of going down another rabbit hole of own rooted versus grafted as well.
Okay.
And
yeah, forgive me, I know nothing about this. It's quite interesting.
No worries.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to decide which rabbit hole to go down. Where were we?
Why the grapes are better over time and why you can't use year one grapes to make wine.
So you're established. It's really, I think, maturity establishing the plan. I mean, if you're thinking of producing something to last 20 years, it makes sense to have an established vine. And also, if you're going to age something for 20 years, don't you want proof that it's going to be good in 20 years? So then you have to have a 20-year-old bottle to taste before you decide to age that next one, right?
Right.
So, and all of this is, if it's age worthy, you want proof of that, because that's a lot of capital expenditure in the form of time or space to actually age that properly. So it takes a long time to establish a wine region, because each time you plant a new vineyard, you're waiting at least 4 years to see if it produces, how it produces well over the next 4 years. That first crop of red wine, maybe you're aging it 1 or 2 years beyond that. So you're 5 years in and hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment, depending on the size. And then you might find out that this other variety that your neighbor planted is better, and you want to plant another block of that. So it's just continuously expanding in time to be able to see what's good in that region. And then you get new producers coming in and everything. So anyways, just baseline, what I'm trying to say is, like, there's the commodification of the wine industry, and I'm in this place that is really just becoming its own. We had enough time to say, hey, grapes grow well here, and we think we have a few varieties that grow really well here and stand out. Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Chardonnay, and then Pinot Noir is the only red that has proven itself to, at least of vinifera varieties that are from the old world, proven itself to grow really well there. And so then you're like, okay, these grow well here. Now, after my dad planted and a couple other Pinot Noir vineyards planted, now everyone's planting Pinot Noir. Those vineyards will come online in 5 years. And eventually, my bet is kind of just, my area is going to be known for Pinot Noir. And because my dad just got lucky, I guess, planted Pinot Noir right after the movie Sideways came out. Yeah, serendipity of following your dreams and making it happen.
Yeah.
Now I'm the beneficiary and can kind of take Pinot Noir into this world stage is a little lofty, but, you know, kind of elevate the wine region I'm in as, hey, we can be whatever we want to be. We haven't defined what Colorado Pinot Noir, Peony Pinot Noir tastes like. So we can be anything. So then you don't have to define yourself to this specific rubric of getting a 95 on that. You're just like, hey,
Right.
we are what we are.
Yes.
And it's beautiful being at the beginning of that because there's no cohesive taste of that. And even tasting I think there was 5 Pinots from my region that I tasted. They're all very different. So
And why is that?
it's the soil. It's an innumerable amount of
Yeah.
factors. It's the soil. There's a few maybe different growing seasons in that tasting I did, specifically the winemaker that makes tons of choices in the winemaking. When you harvest, I mean, a million different factors.
That is wild. And so you mentioned the commodification of wine. And so you're hedged against that with your Bitcoin treasury at this point. Is that how you think about it?
The Bitcoin treasury is a bit of a hedge against everything, really. I think that marketing myself to Bitcoiners is more of a hedge against the commodification of wine.
That makes sense.
Not because if I throw starting this, it started out as I hadn't found Bitcoin yet. It just was like I just wanted to start a business, and it was sitting there. Like I said, my dad got that letter. He didn't like quote unquote know what he was doing. He'll tell you that. And I need to start a business for myself. This is sitting there for me to start. Because my dad at that point had wound down everything. He had a year of losing his entire everything, and said, "Screw it, I'm just going to make enough for myself." So it was all there for me. And where do you want the business to go? Started out at farmers markets, couldn't afford to build a tasting room or anything, and then so you're selling to just the general population in ski towns, tourists basically. And in that you see, okay, cool. So the options are basically do this until I start a tasting room, or all of a sudden Bitcoiners just started buying my wine. And what I realized is if I sell to restaurants, if I have a tasting room, I'm fighting against this commodification. I'm different. I have to introduce myself and like sell to them in a way that I'm different. You've never heard of this region for wine. Maybe they have locally, but you're selling to people from all over the world coming to Aspen, coming to Telluride to ski, tons of money, who want to drink old world wine and aren't really interested in Colorado wine because we haven't built up that brand, right?
Yeah.
So what focusing on Bitcoiners has allowed me to do is tell the story of my town and my grape and make my wine and have no burden of what wine should taste like.
Yeah, that is wild. And so how old were you when you moved to Colorado?
I was 8.
You were 8. And so you watched your father grow grapes and make wine. He wasn't selling very much of it, but he was selling some.
There was a 2 or 3 year period where he got a license and sold it, ending in maybe 2015. And then he had a catastrophic, lost everything in his cellar due to unfortunate user error. And he wasn't just growing grapes. We bought 65 acres of organic pears and apples, and he tried the big fruit orchard, lost a bunch of money the first 2 years, and then sold off 40 acres.
Real tough
so now
business, I would imagine.
And it was on its decline. It was big where I'm at.
Okay.
Organic farming's awesome there, and it's what allows me to.
And this
farm
was always organic.
Yeah, it's what allowed me to farm without pesticides and herbicides. Is because the cold winters and dry summers kind of cut out all the fungal issues because there's no humidity, and the winters kill off all the pests. So we get a bear or raccoons in the fall eating the berries, but you can deal with that with a shotgun. So, but anyways, what I wanted to say with that was like grapes were not totally his focus. He just planted 3.5 acres of that. Has a row of cherries, peaches, apples, pears, nectarines, plums, everything. Big garden, big greenhouse. Like his whole thing was, I want to grow all my own food, but what do I do with this plot of land that I don't have anything on? I got to plant something. So it just kind of happened to be that thing, and it happened to work out really well. And I'm the recipient of that, which is great from a legacy basis.
Yeah, I love that. And how old were you when you had decided to get into the wine business and saw that opportunity?
I was 25, so 2019. Was working as a geologist using my degree, and
which is in geology.
Yeah, and hating life, not seeing a path
Yeah.
living in Denver. And basically the first year you make wine and then you got to wait 2 years, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm dumping my entire life savings into this, taking on debt, starting this business, but now I got to wait 2 years.
And that's the minimum for the grapes to ferment and for wine to be produced.
No, you can do it faster, but I was kind of just going off of my dad's model because it worked. And I had never made wine before. So it was ferment the grapes. Fermenting takes about 2 weeks. Then you put it in barrel and you top it off about 6 weeks, once a month ish.
With what?
More wine. So you have wine, extra wine, I guess, or you could take from one barrel and fill up all the others. But barrels breathe, so you lose a little bit of wine.
That makes sense.
And so you just got to keep topping it off so that it doesn't get exposed to oxygen, turn to vinegar. And so, but then after that, after a year of aging in barrel, you could go longer, you could go shorter. You could not even use barrels. You could use stainless steel tanks. But after a year of aging in barrel, I bottle. And then, I don't know, I'm sitting there like, I'd never made wine before. I don't know if this is good. If I can just wait a little bit longer, it just gets better. Great, I'll do that. I'm in no rush. So I guess that first year was 18 months. But yeah, so made the wine the first year, commuted back and forth. And then after...
Like restaurants and farmers markets?
No, commuted back and forth from Denver to make the wine.
Okay.
So 5-hour drive.
You were living in Denver.
And then moved home, and my dad built houses his whole life. Always wanted to build a house with a kid. So he and I built the house that I'm living in now.
That's rad.
And that was the final year of my waiting for it to age. And as soon as that house was done, I moved in and started selling wine.
And this is 2015, 16.
This is 2020.
2020.
Yeah. So right as kind of the COVID lockdowns were happening, I got out of Denver.
Okay. Good timing on that one.
Great timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any wine that has been aged for 20 years at this point?
Not quite the 20 years.
Yeah.
But every year we open up one of the oldest at harvest, we open up one of the oldest bottles we have. So I think the oldest we've tried is like 17 or 18 years. And that my dad made right when he was starting. And I find they're still getting better every year, which is really cool. Because people always ask me, like, how long should I age this wine? And the answer is, I don't know, right?
How long is a piece of string?
Well, it gets better and then it gets worse.
Okay. There's a point of diminishing returns.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I can only say from my experience, because every wine is different. You can have generalities of like wine with these characteristics generally age as well. And you kind of have to go by that. And that's why like vineyard specific, if I know that this vineyard has produced wine that's ageable for 20 years, which is killer, then I can feel comfortable aging wine longer. And
it gets more valuable the longer it's aged.
It gets more scarce.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you're asking for like a resale market, the market has to exist. And if you buy that wine and you're trying to sell it, you have to have a reputation as someone who stored it well. Because like if you move and your wine gets hot in a U-Haul for one day, that ruins the 20 years, right? So when people are asking me how long to age wine, I'm like, look, my dad has aged this wine for about 20 years. You know, that's great. Great to know. I think my Pinot could probably do that if stored well. That said, I make a lot of other wines from grapes from a nearby wine region in Colorado. And I've only aged those 6 years. I think they're still getting better, but I have no idea, right? So I can guess, and it's fun, it's experimental, but like every time you take a sip of wine, it's different. It changes in the glass. It changes when you pop the cork for like 30 minutes if you let it air. So it's like this extremely ephemeral thing of like, when's it best? I don't know. It would probably, even if the wine would taste better another 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, to a week, like you have this moment with like your wife and it's a special time, it's going to taste the best then.
Yeah, that's
because you're in the mindset for it to be amazing.
iCoin Technology has released a slick new hardware wallet. It looks like a mini iPhone with a high-res 3-inch touchscreen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, and no GPS. It is an air-gapped hardware wallet which uses QR codes and a camera to communicate with the Bitcoin network. It has a built-in camera, which is required for air gap operation, and it has an optional Bluetooth compatibility. It's really a brand new user interface and user experience for a Bitcoin hardware wallet. iCoin makes self-custody accessible, easy to use, and non-intimidating. It even comes with an optional custom iCoin thermal printer, so you can print out the private key and its associated QR code when you're setting up the wallet. This makes setup quick and simple. Also, it is easy to restore the wallet just by reading the seed phrase QR code with the wallet camera. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like the iCoin wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. So go to iCointechnology.com/breedlove today for 30% off the purchase of this sleek new hardware wallet. Again, that's iCointechnology.com/breedlove. If you're anything like me, you understand that Bitcoin is something we can use every day to connect, to collaborate, and to build stronger, freer communities. As true Bitcoiners, you all know we are each responsible for onboarding more Bitcoiners. That's why I chose to partner with Cowbolt, an expense splitting app that settles in Bitcoin. It can be as simple as splitting a dinner bill. Your friend covers dinner and you reimburse them, but you send it back to him in Bitcoin. Now your friend has their first sats. And as I always say, where your money goes, the mind follows. By using Cowbolt to get Bitcoin into the hands of your friends and family, you can help us orange pill the world. Cowbolt is built to let you split costs, share expenses, and settle instantly, while always keeping full control of your keys. Cowbolt is simple, social, non-custodial, exactly how Bitcoin was meant to be used. If you're serious about Bitcoin, it's time to act like it. Download Cowbolt today on iOS or Android. To learn more, go to cowbolt.com. Again, that's Cowbolt, COWBOLT.com.
So at this point, you've been cultivating grapes there for what, 20, 25 years or so. How are you fertilizing or remineralizing the soil, or do you have to do any of that?
So we got a new vineyard going that has had some setbacks with some hard frosts, and expect to get a small crop for the first time next year after 5 years of growing.
And is that like a late frost?
Yeah. So in my ventures I kind of started at a great time, but an inopportune time, because I made wine my first two harvests. And then right after my second harvest, there was a devastating freeze. 13 degrees is not cold in the winter, but as a first freeze of the year, before the vines have had a chance to like suck in the moisture and harden for winter, it killed all the vinifera, all the varieties that people really care about in Colorado. There was no grapes in Colorado for that year, for my, what would be third year. So I'd barely started selling wine, or hadn't started selling wine. And now, my entire business model or what I'm building my business on is gone. Right. So that was right when we planted that new vineyard. So we had 80% die off there as well. And that's fine. Everything grows back, but you just lose a year of production. And you hope that you've got enough in the cellar to just kind of shuffle some stuff around, change some release dates, and make it through. But when it's your second year, you don't.
It's pretty discouraging, I'm sure.
But also, you're committed enough that you just, you got to keep going. So
wild. And so at what point did you discover Bitcoin?
So when I moved back to my hometown to start building this house, I moved in with a good friend from high school who I considered like one of the smartest people I know. And he just happened to be really into Bitcoin. And so he and I would just talk geopolitics, like all the stuff that I love talking about, that kind of thing. And I'd been really into personal finance. And in 2019, the repo rate, lowering my savings account rate to below what I perceived as inflation, CPI, I knew there was something wrong. So I was ready for these conversations. Yeah. He just told me to start looking into Bitcoin right as the Sailor series came out. And so I'm building a house with my dad on land that I grew up on, starting a long-term investment with a winery, and learning about Bitcoin all at the same time. So it was this crazy, intense period of time of learning about, I didn't know the term low time preference, but doing all these insanely low time preference activities
Totally.
all at once, super condensed, having my brain break, like flipping myself around and coming out of it now as a winemaker selling his wine for Bitcoin.
And gosh, I love that. And you were on Twitter at the time, or did you get?
I'd never been on Twitter in my life. And then my buddy knew all the sports trades before I did and all the Bitcoin stuff before I did. And so I was like, well, I guess I better get on Twitter because he's making me feel stupid. And then went to Bitcoin Miami, must have been 22. And that was like, oh, wow, these are amazing people. I've been sucked into this for like a year, but like, these are amazing people. And he started becoming friends with them, just started posting on Twitter. And then I didn't set out to start selling wine on that. I always thought I would have a tasting room, sell to restaurants, whatever, the classic route. And then Bitcoiners were just like, oh, you make wine? Can I buy it? Can I buy it with Bitcoin? And me, a Bitcoiner, well, yeah, of course, no problem. And then over time, I was able to kind of phase out the beginning part of my business, selling wine at farmers markets,
which must have been a huge relief.
Yeah. I mean, I told you earlier, I thought I was going to die on the road because I was driving. I mean, I was just driving so much. I was working 12-hour day after 12-hour day. And I live in the middle of nowhere, but I'm also 2 hours from a bunch of ski towns, a bunch of like high wealth areas where I could go and make good money selling wine. But yeah, it's not a way to live. It's a way to get started, a way to build, but not a way to live. So this is the first year that I've just dropped. I'll do fiat sales and like I'd sell to Bitcoin. I don't really care what you buy my wine in, because if I have extra fiat, I'll just buy Bitcoin, but I have expenses in fiat. So whatever. But I just got to a point where I'm like, I am just going to say no to that clientele. I mean, there's people come into town all the time and are asking me to taste wine, and I'm just like, don't want to do that. But if a Bitcoiner comes into town and I'd open up my cellar and I'm like, all for him, I'll spend a couple of hours with them and hang out. So
yeah, that's wild. When I discovered you, one of the first things I was just like, I wish I could sell my cannabis online. Right. But with the regulations, it can't leave state lines. Mm-hmm. And so is it hard to get a liquor license and produce? Or do you have any sort of regulatory impedance to sell wine online?
Yes and no. Getting a liquor license, there's definitely a solid amount of bureaucracy. And I think with AI, it'd be a hell of a lot easier now. I don't read legalese all that well. And wasn't about to hire a lawyer with my zero money at that time. And got it through it, in a few months. It was fine. But I think the issue I run into the most now is just the friction for being able to accept Bitcoin. And it's not like there's no specific Bitcoin stuff. It's just I have a liquor license in Colorado. And there's a lot of states that reciprocate. They're like, if you have a liquor license here, you can sell in our state, but you got to file taxes based off where the person buys it.
Oh.
So yeah, so that's
a thing.
That's a real regulatory headache.
Yeah.
So anyways, basically with that, I get access to maybe 35, I don't know the exact number, liquor licenses without having to get another one. But to get all 50 or 46 that allow shipping into the state, I'd have to go then get another 10 or so on my own, which I'm not going to do. And file all the taxes.
So you're not selling to the whole country.
You are. So then I have a platform that specializes in online sales. Basically, the people who are in my situation, small winery, doesn't want to hire a lawyer to get liquor licenses and file taxes in all these states, but they take about a 10% haircut. And despite I've given up at this point, but asking them to allow me to accept Bitcoin on all these sales, they're fiat only. And since I'm maybe the only winery asking, like, whatever, I'll just have a workaround. So I basically just have to take Bitcoin to cash sale and do everything manually on my end to input the Bitcoin sales. And that doesn't scale. It's frustrating, but ultimately, like, I'm getting paid in Bitcoin. So, and it's my business. If I wasn't accepting Bitcoin, how can I be marketing to Bitcoiners? I think that's the lowest hurdle of being a Bitcoin company is accepting Bitcoin. So
totally.
You got to do it.
Yeah. And so Do you have a team or is it just you and your family? Because I can imagine, I mean, in my experience, farming is a lot of work. And so you're tending to the crops throughout the year. You probably have to prune them. You have to harvest. You probably harvesting in a very short window because the season is changing. And you're bringing the grapes in, and you smash the grapes, you barrel it, and it starts to ferment. And then you're bottling it, and then you're shipping it. And so how many people do you have working with you?
So it's just me, but vineyard help has
seasonal
some help. And then winemaking season is insanity, but usually it's like, hey, I have one day of hard work. I'll get 2 buddies or 2 helpers, whatever. And then harvest is always intense because you got to pick today, right? So you're just scrounging for everyone, but people do find it's romantic those people don't work that hard, but it's romantic to pick grapes. So we can get a team, but there's not so much labor that I need this massive workforce. That said, when the new vineyard comes online, it's this constant expansion, and my dad is phasing out, and so taking on more responsibility as we go. But from the beginning, it was always like, Dad, if I do this, I'm going to be living basically on your property right next to you. This has to be my business. So he helped me grow the grapes for the first couple of years, and then now it's on me.
And gosh, that's so cool. So you have to maintain the fields. You have to weed, or you do cover crops. Like, what do you do?
When I see vineyards that are barren in the middle, it hurts me a bit, but it's also different climates. I get it. And if you can't water there, you're not going to get plant growth. But we're surrounded by orchards. And so it's just the natural orchard grass that comes up, and just a diverse mix of plants underneath. And then we weed, we prune. But there is a general underlying philosophy for my vineyard that just carrying over from my dad. I do a bit more than he did, but he was pretty laissez-faire. Just kind of let them do their thing. I'm a bit of like, let them do their thing within these certain restrictions of just like focusing growth. And that's produced great wine. So it's maybe a bit less meticulous. And if a serious vineyard professional who works on massive vineyards came to my vineyard, they'd probably find some problems. But ultimately, it's produced great wine, and that's the only thing that matters.
And do you have to, so because of the freezes, you don't really have pest or pathogen issues, but I'm sure you still have to do some things like spray sulfur.
So we spray sulfur, on organic sulfur compound, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and that's it.
You have powder and mildew issues?
Powdery mildew. Yeah, that's the only thing really to worry about.
The sulfur works really well to stop that.
Yeah, if used strategically. But other than that we've had that the year that 2020 was this crazy year for wildfires in California. And we got all the smoke from that, not nearly to the same degree as you dealt with, but there were days with a fully red sun that you could stare at and not like fully apocalyptic. Especially considering you didn't feel like you were right next to a fire. But what that did is we didn't get any smoke taint or anything like that, but it pushed birds off their migratory pattern. And so we've never had to net our grapes before. You know, we'll lose some, like I said, to raccoons or something. But by the time I realized that birds were eating our grapes that had been pushed off their migratory pattern that we'd never see, we'd lost half our crop that year.
Really?
So there's more we could do. We could put up nets, but we don't need to normally. So that was a one-off year. And then grasshoppers come in cycles. So last year was a bad grasshopper year, and this year is moderate. And some other vineyards will put down poison, but like I live on the property with my vineyard.
Yeah, well then other animals eat the grasshoppers. You're affecting the food chain. I'm not going to put poison
in my vineyard and then expect to make good wine out of that. So, you know, it's a bit of like, well, bad grasshopper year. I'll look for these different things. Maybe some mowing patterns can kind of change things, but ultimately, like, it's a bit of hope and pray.
I would imagine there probably is some bioinsecticides, like metazarium is a fungus that kills bugs. I don't know. I haven't dealt with grasshoppers, but I would imagine that there's some sort of bio pesticide that you can use to solve that problem.
Definitely something to look into on my part, but I'm always wary of any new inputs. There's, you know, cultivating is a bit of like a, you know, you are the superpower as the human orienting these things, but ultimately I'm trying to create something that's a bit of like, it is the place it's in, and the more heavy handed you are, the more it changes that. And like, I can't speak to any specifics about what you're saying, but I'm always just wary with inputs, with new ways of doing things, because we've had historical success. Why disrupt the things, the balance of the biosphere that's living there?
Yeah. Are you making compost teas or compost on site with any of the wood chippings, or like what inputs do you have to bring in to fertilize on the?
So we'll do, as I said, with the new vineyard that's coming up, we did, we put chicken manure on it.
And you till it the first year?
Yeah, tilled it to prep and then have just mowed it. And so over the years, you see that first year it's barren. So the nasty nettles and weeds all come up, and slowly over a few years, those just get out competed by the orchard grasses that are kind of creeping in from the sides. Yeah. So long term, not an issue there. Did not do compost this year on the established vineyard, but may look to do that next year, kind of depending on the value of that. But ultimately, we're just not really taking anything out of it. Like whenever we prune, those just get chopped up and mowed right back in, so they'll refertilize. We are taking so we are taking the berries out, so there is definitely removal, and so you want to re-input. But since we're not irrigating, those roots are continuously forced to go down, so they're always finding new nutrients that way.
Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. Would you rather have 1 Bitcoin today or 2 Bitcoin a few years from now? Bitcoin mining is a tried and true strategy for accumulating Bitcoin. Over a 2 to 4 year time frame, successful miners have consistently accumulated more Bitcoin than they otherwise would with a traditional dollar cost average strategy. Blockware mining as a service enables you to start mining Bitcoin from your laptop. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. Plus, with Blockware's one-of-a-kind mining marketplace, you can buy and sell live Bitcoin miners with just a few keystrokes. In this marketplace, buyers get to purchase live machines at vetted facilities, enabling them to mine with zero lead time. And sellers get the opportunity to liquidate their machines and hosting contracts at will. This means you can mine Bitcoin with zero long-term commitment and high liquidity on your mining rigs. Blockware will even cover your energy bill for 1 week per mining rig when you sign up at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Again, that's 1 free week of Bitcoin mining at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. And on top of this offer, you can also use code BREEDLOVE to get $100 off your first mining rig with Blockware Solutions.
So I don't drink alcohol. It's very rare at this point in my life. I just found the older I get, it's just kind of hard on the body.
Totally.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of an extreme person in my ways. So I found that when I was drinking or would drink, I would find that I would end up just drinking more than it's so fun. Yeah. It's so absolutely fun. Totally. I could be extreme where it's oh, this is really fun. Let me have more to drink, you know? But I found that when I was drinking sulfite-free wine, I felt significantly better afterwards.
Yeah.
So what is that? I don't know really anything about that other than sulfite-free wine is preferable.
Great rabbit hole to go down because there's no specific answer, I would say.
Okay.
And sulfite-free wine is a misnomer. There's sulfite in all wine. It's naturally occurring.
Uh-huh.
But the truth of the matter is a lot of wineries will add a ton of sulfites to their wine.
Okay.
And
what is the sulfite that they're adding to it?
Generally potassium metabisulfite. So what that does is it protects the wine from oxygen, and it does actually make it taste better to a degree. But you can overuse it, and you're not going to overuse it in the way that, this tastes like sulfur, way below any threshold there. But your body, I think, does react to it. But at the same time, all the research I've done in this is like, no, sulfur's fine. It's not going to screw you up. And so it's kind of like, okay, but then I drink low sulfur wine and I feel great. But the research doesn't match that. And so, maybe there's some funding issues or the research is bad or whatever. But
I was just going to ask
I default to, okay, let's assume that's right. And this empirical evidence is right too. What else do I know about this? What else is causing this? And I experienced the same thing. Like I don't drink nearly as much anymore, and notice that if I drink most other things, I feel pretty crappy the next day. Whereas I can drink a buttload of my wine or other wine produced like mine, and I'm like, I don't even think about getting a hangover, which is a wild flip because you think I'm drinking, I'm enjoying the moment, but I'm going to suffer for this. But you don't have to.
It's like pulling, it's in some sense, it parallels Fiat in some way where you're like pulling your good feeling out of tomorrow and using it now, and you're going to have to pay it back. Mm-hmm. One of the things I personally struggled with is I never like to pay it back.
Right.
So I would find, well, I don't know, maybe I just have a drink the next day because I feel better. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, you're just drinking it all the time. Or me personally, it was just like, started to make my life a little more challenging, and life is hard as it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to wake up and not stub your toe or have someone cut you off and get angry about it or whatever. And so for me, I just kind of had to eliminate any of the things that I struggled to maintain good control over, I suppose.
Smart. And for everyone, like alcohol, my experience with alcohol is like, okay, but if you drink these things, you don't have to feel as bad. But also alcohol is addictive, and it can have negative impacts on your life. There's a balance for everyone, and for some people that balance is zero, and that's totally fine. I guess my point is just that, you can drink this specific thing and not have nearly the downsides, but also wine or alcohol can be positive to your life. It can kind of like center you to the moment, can bring out some magic in meals with food pairings, and it can benefit your life, but there are these huge negative side effects. And so like when I started making wine, it was this big identity shift. You're like, well, I'm a winemaker now. Winemakers drink a lot, right? And so in tasting the wine as I do, I would just, it's in my mouth. I'm 26 at the time. I'm going to drink it.
Yeah, and I feel good. Yeah.
And this is just what winemakers do. They're just drunk all the time, right? And after maybe a month of progressing from like, it's 4:00, I'll have a glass of wine in the cellar as I finish out my day, to like, it's 7 a.m. and I just had to taste some wine. I'm going to drink it. And so that progression after a month, I was like, this turns into alcoholism. I just got to not. So now it's spit. But back to kind of where we were at with feeling bad and not feeling as bad with drinking wine is, I think there's a ton of different factors. And in the wine, people always point to the thing they know about, because wine is this black box for people. Most people don't know how wine is made. Most people, like, when I get introduced as a winemaker to people, the most common interaction is, I don't know anything about wine.
Totally. Because that's exactly how I feel. I'm like, I drank a lot of it.
Yeah.
I know how it feels when I drink it, but and of being a farmer, I'm like, you grow the grapes and then you smash them and you put them in a barrel and in a bottle, but that's the extent of my knowledge.
But I think that reaction is a bit of like you get talked down to by wine people. And so you're like, you've reached this echelon, about wine, but I don't, and I'll never reach that. Mm-hmm. And so I find that the only two things that matter in wine, and you could go in depth, but the two things most powerful are, do you like it? Because if you don't like it, don't drink it. Even if they tell you it's good, it doesn't matter.
That's a good point.
If you don't like it, don't drink it. Don't let people tell you what you should like. And two, how do you feel after? Mm-hmm. And with most alcohol, it's just assume that you're going to feel bad when you drink. But to get into this, I've been hinting around it for a minute, but people point at what they know with wine because there's this black box that they don't understand, and they don't approach because they don't think they'll ever understand it to the extent that a sommelier understands it. And so they're afraid of it. And they hear about sulfites. Oh, sulfites give me headaches. Science says no, but when you drink low sulfite wine, you don't get headaches. But then other people are like, it's the tannins. Science says most tannins used, there's some tannins in really high commercialized wines that could make you feel bad, but most tannins used are either from the oak, from the grape itself, or derived from those two things. Those don't give you headaches.
When the wine is in the barrel, it'll pull tannins out of the
oak, and then fermentation. You can do it with more stems, with less stems from the seeds, all sorts of different things to get. So that's like in the winemaking, you can change all these different subtle things that you would never see. You could maybe ask the winemaker, but you're asking hundreds of winemakers for all these different things that you can't even nail down that was what caused this flavor. Maybe there's some thinking to it, but like, as a drinker who's not crazy into it, you're not going to get that. And so basically, like, all these different things have been said to me as, no, I can't drink red wine anymore because I don't get headaches. And a lot of them, it's like, okay, these kind of all just generally move towards low intervention winemaking, where you're not adding a bunch of things to the wine. Because in winemaking, you can do it bare bones. You can do it without any additions. And you can make good wine. You have a little bit more variability, obviously less control as a winemaker. And it's harder to get a good product and less consistent, and maybe it spoils faster, maybe not. But if you're just in the wine game, you can't afford to take that risk.
Well, especially as the currency is debased and your cost of operating is going up on an annual basis, you're incentivized to figure out how to dilute the quality of the wine to keep your costs down. Or what are you going to do? Can you raise your costs on an annual basis as fast, or your prices on an annual basis as fast as your costs are going up? That's hard to do.
Yeah. So then you have to build brand to be able to do that. Yes. So with low intervention winemaking, it's kind of taking the best of both worlds of like, hey, we're going to do as little as possible to this wine. We're going to keep it as close to its roots as possible. We don't want the winemaker to show up as much, we want the land to show up. And I'm more set in my ways now, but as I was getting going, there was a lot of having winemakers come and they consistently be like, oh, it tastes like this. You should add this to it to change the flavor, to change the texture, the acidity, everything. Everything you can describe in a wine, you can change with a chemical. And so when we're talking about the commodification of wine, you're going to have just different winemaking techniques, different grapes, but also chemical additions to change it to taste exactly like this. And that becomes
shortcuts.
It becomes like a food science production as opposed to an art form.
Yes.
And so with wine, it is a balance of art and science, because there are things that you can test for that like decide when to pick the grapes. The science is not bad, but with the temptation to be able to add all these different things to create the wine that it should taste like, I just kind of reject that of it's not the way the wine should taste. It's the way the wine does taste or wants to taste, if you want to give it that. So my philosophy is just do as little as possible. Let the wine speak for itself. And what you get is, wine that you don't feel as bad after drinking. Additionally, from what I've read, is also cutting out seed oils will make your hangovers not as bad. So it all comes back to the seed oils in reality.
I know, huh?
But it is this huge mental flip of, and I've had a few like moments, as I said, where it's just like, wow, I just drank a lot and I didn't even think about how I'm going to be hungover the next day. Alcohol will hurt my sleep. I stayed up late as well, but I'm not going to have this debilitating hangover the next day. And that combined with the like, you're drinking, you perceive value in the alcohol, you enjoy it. So you don't have to give up that next day enjoyment to get the positive experience of hanging, drinking with friends. And I totally get like, be healthy, be mindful, be in the moment. And you don't want to sacrifice the future. You don't have to as much of a degree. And I also find value in, as I'm sure you do as well, in putting your mind in different headspaces, different like growing up's a weird way to say it, but like in high school, I smoked a lot of weed and did some mushrooms, and that changed my life to an insane degree. Like just turned me from a pretty negative person to seeing the super positivity in the world. And that served its purpose, and I see the world so much differently. So basically, like, that's just to say, like, I think that putting your mind in living through different psychological experiences, putting your brain on a different wavelength is super powerful. People think of alcohol as an escape. And I think that to a degree, within moderation, that absolutely can be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But the culture of drinking, I think most people would agree.
Well, most people are
negative.
suffering,
Yeah.
and they're trying to self-medicate in all forms, from bad food to drugs and all this. So we just have this addiction issue that is really exacerbated through our monetary system. And so personally, I found that I don't have that thing in me that causes me to want to soothe the discomfort or pain in life. And a lot of that I can say is directly related to my Bitcoin journey down the rabbit hole. And so I do think that in some sense, alcohol has kind of got a negative rep because so many people are abusing it because they're suffering.
Yes. And the degradation of alcohol, the addition of all these chemicals and the commodification of it, I think that's directly related to monetary decline, because I'll get exact dates wrong, but it wasn't until the 70s that California wine really became a thing on the world stage. There was...
What's the movie? You just mentioned it earlier.
So Sideways changed.
And there's another one, Bottle Shock? Or
I believe Bottle Shock, and then there's another one about spoofing. That might be Bottle Shock, but there's the movie I'm specifically referencing. The time frame of is this one about
Sideways is what it's
the
called.
California wine in the 70s, shocking the world by winning an international competition, because everyone thought that to make good wine, you had to be in the old world. And so, it's a closed mindset to think that you can only make good wine there, but also they've been doing it for hundreds of years, 1,000 years. And so when I look at the wine through a monetary lens, okay, in the early 70s, California wine became a thing on the gold standard. Yep. And, we're also moved off the gold standard in Europe and everything, but they have 1,000 years of cultural buildup of momentum to keep wine the same way, to frame this is when I drink California wine or most American wine, I get hangovers. And when I drink French or European or generally European wine, I don't get hangovers.
You think that's because they have the brand recognition, which kind of hedges them against the commoditization? There's
a bit of that. And so it's like, we have the cultural momentum to keep making wine the same way we've been doing it for hundreds of years. Fifth generation winemakers taking over the family vineyard. And in France and a lot of places, like, you're not allowed to use pesticides. You're not allowed to irrigate. You just have to do it these specific ways. And so there's a bit of bureaucracy hurdle, but that's also cultural there. Whereas in the United States, it's build fast, break things. And we're just building a new thing. Wine hasn't existed. It's been around for 100 years before that in California, but the wine culture hasn't really built up since then. So everything that is like California and thus the seeds for the rest of American wine is post 1971. So it's all like, there was no stasis to keep things done the way it was 100 years ago because there was nothing there.
That makes sense.
So with that, then everything's being built with the mindset of, or in whether it's knowing or not, of in a fiat world where you're constantly being debased, and therefore you're more incentivized to take shortcuts because the long-term value of everything it's just so torn up by fiat incentives. So you have the stasis of European wine being made the same way it has for years, and they're fighting against the fiat system to a degree. Wine is something that does get better with age. Whether it gets more valuable or not is different factors, but they're making it their way and they enjoy it. And everyone understands that this is how you're supposed to make wine. So they value it. Whereas in the United States, there was no culture. So they started building in the fiat system, having their prices or their inputs constantly go up, having to take corners to be profitable. And then no one knows wine and they go by the scale. So that just like pushes it even further into commoditization. And there was just no escaping it because it was a time thing. It's just what it grew up in. And it's you know, when people ask me like if they don't want to feel bad after drinking, what should I drink? If they're not going to drink my wine, either know your producer and know that they have a similar mindset to what I'm talking about, or just default to French or Italian, or some other places that you might know. But since there's like, wine is this crazy, intimidating rabbit hole, just like Bitcoin.
It is. And that's why when I drank, I just like, I never got into the wine thing. I mean, I would drink wine, but I never found myself being like, oh, like, let me figure out what makes a wine good or not. It just seemed to be such an endless journey.
Yeah. And there's no way to learn it except to do it, to drink a lot, to drink a bunch of different things that costs a lot of money to start getting into nice wine. Right. And everything is extremely ephemeral. So your journey down the wine rabbit hole is a smell, taste, experiential journey. Whereas with Bitcoin, it's logical. I continue thinking about this thing. Whereas if you're not drawn by your nose or your sense of taste, if that's not what drives you in the world, you're not it's hard to go down the wine rabbit hole unless you just have a ton of money and and are curious. But with Bitcoin, you can just think about it all day. You can think about the numbers. This makes sense. But with wine, you're like, oh man, that bottle of 2008 was just insane. You
it's
keep
much
thinking
more,
about
how do I feel about this? Not how do I think about this?
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to start a business in the Bitcoin space? If so, then the Wolf Startup Accelerator could be for you. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to businesses developing in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times each year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. Go to wolfnyc.com to learn more or apply today. Again, that's Wolf, WOLF, NYC.com. Bitcoin custody is evolving. Both self-custody and single third-party custody come with significant risk and trade-offs. Onramp is pioneering a new standard, multi-institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure, adding fault tolerance and redundancy to your setup. Onramp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated cold storage multi-key vault guarded by 3 independent institutional-grade custodians, none of which have unilateral control over your keys. Your funds are fully auditable on-chain, cannot be rehypothecated, and can only move or be withdrawn at your explicit direction. Multi-institution custody removes the technical, mental, and physical burdens of private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Bitcoin is money, and as the price continues to appreciate, Onramp helps you seamlessly tap into financial services like trading, inheritance, insurance, loans, IRAs, and more, all without compromising on security or accessibility. Schedule a consultation with the Onramp team to learn more at onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. Again, that's onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove.
Being a cannabis producer for 17 years, and I've smoked more cannabis in my time than most people on planet Earth. I can say that much. And I can tell it's so nuanced, and the profit motives to figure out how to grow the biggest yield at the highest THC has had such an effect on the quality of the product. Like over the last year and a half, I've done a lot of traveling. People will come up to me all over the world. They'll offer, hey, they know I'm the weed guy. They're like, hey, you want to try this weed? I typically don't even like smoking other people's weed. Not that I'm entirely adverse to it, but I know all the pesticides and the things that can go into it. The testing standards, a lot of places where it's black market, there obviously isn't any testing standards. People are using fungicides like myclobutanol, which is like the most commonly used fungicide on the planet. They spray it on like golf courses to stop with like certain fungus issues. It's commonly used in cannabis cultivation for powdery mildew. Apparently when it's combusted, it creates a neurotoxin. So like I'm very adverse to smoking cannabis that's not coming out of a state that has adult use recreational cannabis with testing standards. And in those areas, actually, cannabis is like one of the cleanest products that you can buy because the testing standards are pretty stringent, but it's very nuanced. And I can see that it sounds like wine is that way, if not more. And you have this long history. That's one of the things I find very fascinating. For thousands of years, how long have people been growing wine in Italy? For forever, basically. I find that to be quite interesting.
It's a bit more of a black box though, because there, like you're saying, in the legalized areas, there is a ton of testing, there is strict regulation, but you don't have to say anything that goes into your wine, really. I farm organically, but I don't put organic on my labels. And
you have to pay for that certification.
Part of it's just like I'm a Bitcoiner and don't like being put in a box. And like if I can talk directly to my customers, they'll know. But also I find that there's a weird stigma with organic wine in the wine community. People are searching for it, absolutely.
From the consumer side,
yeah.
Over the years, when I was buying wine, I'm like, oh, I want organic wine.
But there's a bit of a stigma, I think, in the extreme, like hardcore wine people that are a bit of like, well, that just means it's like farm wine. It's going to be crappy. It's just some farmer that does it, which isn't real. And like I said, I don't do it. I guess I see that stigma, but I can talk directly to my customers. But honestly, I think that organic wine is just like the tip of the iceberg in it, because like I said, there's all these different chemicals you can add into wine. There's no ingredients list required on wine or most alcohol as it is. And there's 73 improved ingredients that you can put in there.
And keep it
organic. Yeah, so organic is referring to the
cultivation of the grapes.
Yeah,
has nothing to do with any additives.
Yeah, once you get into the cellar, that's everything. That's all the additives. So you're really just, you have no idea. And when you're looking for a wine that doesn't make you feel bad, like, oh, high tannin wine or high sulfur wine, those give me headaches. But it's like, maybe. But it also could be any of these other 73 things that are in a wine bottle that you have no idea whether they're in there or not. And there's no way to ascertain that. You could ask a direct question to the winemaker, but there's a lot of winemakers who, and if you see these, you should just stay away from them. If they're not completely open about what they do, stay away, because there's no way, you cannot copy what I do. You cannot copy my grapes.
Right.
You could try and copy my method. I could tell you everything that I do, and you can't replicate what I do.
No, because it's the climate, it's the mineral composition and the soil.
So there's incentive to be open.
Yes.
But if you're closed, that means you're hiding something. So you're probably hiding either these ingredients, where the grapes came from, something shady. So that's just a general red flag. But yeah, it could be any of those things that gives you a headache. And I think that high sulfur use is a tell that they're probably doing other stuff to it. Whether sulfur gives you a headache or not, there's probably a tell that there's something else in there that is giving you a headache.
It's causing what? The plant, if the plant's getting fed chemical fertilizers or has other issues, then the immune system's not strong enough. Then they have to spray more sulfur, and then that's
and they have to add stuff to correct the fermentation and to correct the aging and everything. Like if it's bad grapes, the only way you don't get bad wine is manipulation. So my core philosophy is just like, I have good grapes. Don't mess with that. That's what's going to get me there. Good grapes create good wine as long as I don't mess it up.
What other kind of alcohols do you like to drink if you do?
I'll drink tequila and whiskey, usually pretty straight. Mixers will more likely give you a headache, because it's also a bit of the hangover is a blood sugar crash.
Okay.
So in just researching this, because like finding Bitcoin and going all in on myself in a business, I had some health issues that I was like, well,
just from grinding too hard.
Well, no, I had a gut issue all through college that would mess me up. And really it was like, well, if I want to succeed on a business perspective, that's on me. So I need to get stronger. And so I met the Meat Mafia guys, Brett and Harry, who have an awesome podcast. And they were just so like vibrant energetically.
Yeah.
That I was like, what are you guys doing? I want that. And ultimately I just took away from it, like eat more beef. And that plus learning about seed oils, plus learning about blood sugar, all just kind of baseline stuff just helped me mediate it. And so taking a that lens to drinking wine and like, how do I feel after drinking alcohol? Wine, we'll have to look up the specific chemicals because I'm always more of a broad brush guy. What is going on? Not specifics. But there's the one thing I found that was really funny is wine has this chemical that decreases your body's ability to take testosterone out of your blood. So it's not going to like raise your testosterone or anything. But when you're drinking wine, your testosterone is going to be higher because you're not getting it out of your blood. You're not filtering it out of your body. And
Wild.
with drinking, one of the things is that you're messing up your circadian rhythm because you're not going to sleep as well. So your testosterone is going to get lowered. So I just, in the bro culture of Bitcoin Twitter, it's fun, like drink wine and you'll tee up, man. But a lot of other alcohols will have a little bit more sugar to them. Like a lot of whiskeys have sugar added. Tequila can be sweeter. And those will take your blood sugar way up because alcohol metabolizes as sugar in your body and then crash it. And you're going to feel bad. And I think that I've changed my diet, stopped eating seed oils, more meat. But the core thing, I think you're boiling it down to one thing in health is blood sugar. Keeping your blood sugar relatively consistent is such an important thing. And that's a big part of why you feel bad when you drink.
That makes sense. Gosh, this is fun. I enjoy this. And then, so, one of the things that I've really been blown away by is how few commodity producers, and in my experience, specifically cannabis producers, are into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the thing that is making their lives harder, commoditization and jurisdictional competition, is the very thing that makes Bitcoin so good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you just stopped reinvesting in your business that's struggling and you just had a Bitcoin treasury, you could hedge yourself against this problem. Are there other winemakers that are getting into Bitcoin, or are you kind of?
I've met a few. I mean, I'm obviously the person that you reach out to. And just on that, what I would say is, Bitcoin's just sitting there for anyone. And in the wine world, you kind of have two choices. You can go big or you can stay small.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle ground, you die.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's very few successful businesses in the middle. So big winemakers, they benefit from the economies of scale. They're buying a ton of grapes. They can get cheaper contracts. They can make it all at once. They can hire winemakers to scale. They can hire distributors that, you're taking a huge haircut, but you have to sell a ton of it. So your distributors are selling all over the world. You can hire this huge network of people to work for you. If you're in the middle ground, you're like, okay, well, I'm not big enough to totally get that economy of scale, but I can't sell it all myself because I have too much wine. So if you're on the smaller side, then you can have a tasting room. Maybe you can have a few local restaurants that sell your wine. You can sell direct like I do, and you can survive because you take out that middleman. And I think with Bitcoin, what it's kind of gave me the power to do is just to say, I'm going to stay small. I don't want to get big. I don't have to keep growing my business like most businesses feel on the Fiat standard, right?
Killing it.
Yeah. And I don't honestly, like personally, the reason I wanted to start a winery, the reason I wanted to start a business was to have a good life.
Not to take over the world.
No. I mean, and there's a bit of like I want to do something that I'm good at. And if I'm good at business, I will make money and do whatever I want with it. But as I get into it more, it's like I live in a house on my family's property. I'm going to have my kids grow up there. I make wine from that place. The wine gives me opportunities to have great dinners with great people, great conversations. Like that's what I want. I don't need all this complexity. And then you add the pressure of like, okay, well, if I invest more in my business to grow, because there's baseline investment. But if I invest more in my business to grow, then I have to outperform Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I'm good.
That's the hurdle rate. Yes.
But to get back to the original framing was, I think there is a ton of opportunity for businesses to grab onto Bitcoin. Yes, for the treasury, that's obvious.
Yeah.
But from a marketing perspective,
well, and it's a high quality consumer base.
Yeah.
Your customers are amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I always said, like, just personally, if I'm picking from a group of people for friends, for relationships, you're always grabbing out of a bucket. I'm grabbing out of my pickup basketball bucket, my pickup soccer bucket, the bar bucket, whatever. But if I can just grab from the bucket of Bitcoiners, I'm more likely to end up meeting people that are high integrity that I love. And obviously we share something in common, but I share something in common with all these people. And from a customer base, Bitcoiners have all these things. They're pretty full of integrity generally. We're speaking in generalities. They're increasingly wealthy. A lot of times they're relatively new wealth. And so they want to experience the trappings of that, high quality things. They want to elevate their lifestyle, right? Yeah. They care about health because they have a reason to care about longevity because they're going to be wealthy in the future. They want to be healthy. And they have like a real drive for you to succeed, your business to succeed, because you are a representation of what I am dedicating my life to. And also like a viral marketing thing where it's like, hey, if you're going to drink wine, drink the Bitcoin wine. Or my friends won't talk to me about Bitcoin. Every time they come over and I want to talk, I'm speaking not about myself, but it is a bit true. Every time they come over, you know, I want to talk about Bitcoin. They're not getting it. I'm so frustrated with my friends. But I break out this bottle of wine or I break out this other nice thing that I bought with Bitcoin and they like it. And you're like, oh yeah, well, I bought that with Bitcoin. And so your intro into that conversation, how you want, it's a new angle. It's not like, oh, it's much more personalized. I can actually get things with it, which is people's hang up. Or it just brings it from this like ethereal place down to a real, I can actually do things tangibly with it, get high quality products and associate Bitcoin away from what people still think is criminals or high just risk betting or whatever it is negative in their minds. Now I associate it with high quality products. And so I think that it's sitting there for a lot of businesses to orient themselves towards Bitcoiners. And we've seen like if the degree or not, and like if it was crypto generally or not, Bitcoiners, crypto, whatever, influenced the national election to a degree.
Totally. I think of that post of American Hodl. Did you see it when he was like, we had an influence on this election. We're going to have an influence on every election.
Absolutely.
I do that. I love that.
American Hodl pumps me up.
Me too.
So anyway, so if there's enough energy to do that, there's enough energy for a lot of businesses to benefit from it. And like, you know, if you have a huge business, it's probably not going to like totally move the needle, but it's also, why would you ignore this insanely loyal and motivated group of people who's been dying to be talked to that's increasingly wealthy? It's like a great niche at least. And for smaller businesses, it can change your entire existence because now you've gained this group of people who is just like a militant following dedicated to you, is kind of like all or nothing people in their lives. Like we are with Bitcoin. So we kind of become that with that something else. Why would I buy something worse when I could just drink this wine or buy from this other producer that accepts Bitcoin? But there are some hurdles with that because you can't just be a Bitcoin company, right? Like we are so used to scams. We're so used to having to dive deep and verify. I mean, that's don't trust, verify is like so dialed into our brains that you can't mess around with Bitcoiners.
Totally. Yeah. You F around, you're going to find out. Yeah.
So you can't just flippantly become a Bitcoin company and expect benefits. Like, as I said at the beginning, the lowest hurdle is I accept Bitcoin. Great. They'll probably bring in some customers. But like going all in on Bitcoin and showing you're like, no, I'm one of you. I'm committed. I'm on your team. We're fighting for this same life, the same world that we want. Then you can kind of start getting the benefits of the Bitcoiner world. And that takes time.
One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. Knowing when to buy Bitcoin can feel complicated, and knowing how much to buy can be overwhelming, and getting started can be a headache, but it doesn't have to be. That's exactly why I recommend Coinbits, because it solves these major blockers and it's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. With Coinbits' Roundups feature, you can automatically convert your spare change into Bitcoin while you shop. For example, when you buy a coffee for $3.50, the extra 50 cents is rounded up and it goes straight into Bitcoin. Here's why that's a huge win for you, because you don't have to be a tech wizard or try to time the market just right with Bitcoin. With Coinbits Roundups, you simply set it, shop, and stack sats. And you can set this up in under 2 minutes. Just visit the website, connect your card, and boom, you're buying a little Bitcoin every time you spend money. So stop wasting your time with complicated exchanges or confusing shitcoin apps. Coinbits simplifies your Bitcoin savings strategy. So go to coinbits.app/breedlove. Again, that's coinbits.app/breedlove.
I think we're at this really cool inflection point where, yes, we had the election. Personally, I'm moved totally into this. I'm seeing a lot of Bitcoiners pop up, making businesses, selling things to Bitcoiners, especially on Nostr. And then, like, that's great. We can all support. I'm proof that it exists, that there's enough energy to support a business, a small business on Bitcoiners. But the real scale up is like way bigger than I imagined we were ready for, is watching Steak and Shake.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
So they're not going to be forthcoming in all their information and everything. And it's like, these conversations have been had. We know it's like amazing that they have just the terminals, so they don't have to teach people how to do Bitcoin. And it's so easy for us Bitcoiners to do that. And whether or not, I think the argument of like, why would you spend Bitcoin there is like, who cares? Because ultimately, as a Bitcoiner, they're supporting what I want, moving in the direction of tallow, whether, you know, they're not totally there yet as far as their sauces and buns. But they're clearly moving towards me, and therefore I'm not going to go to another burger joint across the street. I'm going to go to Steak and Shake, right? And that's the same way. Like, I'm not, like, I don't care. Yes, I want Bitcoin, but if you spend fiat, I have fiat expenses, and anything extra will go to Bitcoin. So like, I don't care what you spend. I just want your business. And Steak and Shake obviously is the same way. Doubtful, or they haven't announced a Bitcoin Treasury or anything. They haven't announced they're keeping it, and they have so many different locations with different owners, different franchisees. Like, it's complicated. They're clearly moving in the direction towards me, and they have said that it's good for their business. I mean, I didn't think of Steak and Shake when I went and got a burger. Now it's on my mind every time I go.
I went with my wife for the first time. I'd never been to a Steak and Shake, honestly, until they announced they were accepting Bitcoin. I'd never even heard of it.
Yeah.
I'm in Northern California. You know, I'm familiar with In-N-Out. I didn't know what Steak and Shake was. We went there. It was good, but, you know, you still have high fructose corn syrup in the bread and whatever, but they're moving in the right direction. And that's the thing that gets me fired up as well.
So if you want them to continue moving in that direction, you kind of have to keep supporting them. You keep voting with your money. And it'll be interesting to see how far they go, because in my vibe that I get from them and talking to other companies that like, or people that work at big companies, like, what would it take to like get your company to start buying Bitcoin or to get orange pilled or start accepting Bitcoin? It's all like the CEO. Oh, the CEO would just have to get orange pilled. You know, and in meeting, I just briefly went over to their stand at the Vegas conference and had a couple questions, and the guys had no idea, but they were like high level people there. And so it felt like the Steak and Shake management, the really higher ups were like, oh, you guys don't believe in this? Go here, experience this, see why we're so crazy about Bitcoin. And those are big ships to steer. So they move slowly, but they went tallow first. Great. You got to have a high quality product. Like, yeah, we have complaints, but they're moving in the right direction. So tallow first, have a high quality product, start accepting Bitcoin, and then like you get all the Bitcoiners making at least, moving Steak and Shake up one higher on the rung of what burger they want to buy because they're on the mission with them. And as a Bitcoin business owner myself, I'm like, yeah, dude, any small business should adopt Bitcoin. You should brand yourself with Bitcoin. It's a mark of high quality because if someone's willing to give you their Bitcoin, you probably have a high quality product. Like no one's generally going to pay with Bitcoin if you have some crappy product. So it's just like, it was kind of this like big shift where it's like, are we further along than I thought?
Feels like
did
it's
we just skip like this middle ground of businesses being like, oh, we'll also target the Bitcoin niche? It's like, no, we're big businesses, yes, also targeting the Bitcoin niche. And it takes a first mover. But if they have serious benefits and, everything's moving towards kiosks and hiring less people, it's a low lift relatively, and the systems will keep getting built out. So that was like wow, we're further than I could have imagined onto things.
Yeah, it's like the pain for things in Bitcoin. Personally, I was in El Salvador 3 times last year, and I'm at a farmer's market, and I use the Strike app because I can deposit USD into my Strike account, and then I can send that via Lightning, so I don't accrue a taxable event. And I've always seen that as like the main impedance for people spending Bitcoin is it can, you have to then keep track of it if you want to be lawful and you want to pay your taxes. But there's a clip from a couple days ago with Trump talking about, and you could buy things with Bitcoin. It takes pressure off the dollar. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. I can't even believe you just said that. Like, it seems like we are moving down a different path than almost, at least I would have expected at this point. When you signed into the executive order for the SBR, like I couldn't even believe it. I was like, whoa, I kind of expected that if he was going to do that, it would have been a few years into his term, if not at the very end. So we're in the midst of some big change, and I have a very optimistic outlook. Otherwise, just doesn't feel good. Right. And it's rational optimism. I resonate with that. When American Hodl, the first time I heard him talk about that, I'm like, yeah, God, that is real. I've had friends over the years that I always found some that are very optimistic, and as I'm suffering less and I'm less uncomfortable in life, I'm less bothered by that optimism. I used to kind of be judgmental, like the world's so fucked up. Why are you all positive all the time? You got your head in a rock or buried in the sand or something. And it's just, there's a lot of things happening that I think indicate we're moving in the right direction, and we're doing so at a pretty rapid pace. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty exciting.
I love that mindset shift.
Yes.
I was always a no man growing up. And I phrase it like that because I literally watched the movie Yes Man, and it changed my life. Just started saying yes to things. And over time, I've kind of realized that pessimism is pointless.
Yes.
And people react negatively to that. They're like, well, there are bad things in the world. Like, what, are you just going to naively be happy all the time? Yeah.
Yeah, I used to think that about people.
Whatever I can control, I'll figure out how to deal with it. If it's a problem, I'll deal with it. And if I can't do anything about it, what's the point of worrying? And Bitcoin does give you a bit of power in that of like, well, I'll be fine.
Totally.
It's all going to work out. I'll be fine. So I really love seeing that spread into the world a bit. Hoping it continues and hoping it's not just the hardcore Bitcoiners, but also we've been in this like doom loop of a system for so long. And I don't know if it's like gratifying or just like putting some actual real numbers and sense to the way the world feels. Is Jack Mallers a couple of weeks ago was talking about how the Great Depression was 80% dip from peak to trough. And it took a decade or 20 years, a long time to recover. And we think about that in dollar terms, but the dollar was gold back then. And from 2001 till I forget when, Bitcoin went, or the stock market went down 80% compared to gold. And so we are in this silent depression of things just getting worse all the time.
Nobody can see it because they're looking at the world through the lens of the dollar.
Through the lens of the dollar, through the things are getting worse. I can't afford stuff. Everyone's getting poorer. Oh, my parents had it so much better. And we've been given this hope. And I've been thinking about it also, like my dad is an early boomer and built houses his whole life, like worked his ass off and did well. He rode the absolute perfect wave to ride for that time.
Going short the dollar and long real estate.
Yeah. And I have a bit of like just as a son being like, you're only so successful because you rode this wave. But like, obviously kicked ass, love him. And, but there's a little bit of like well, you don't know what you're doing because you just rode the wave, as a son would do. And I'm thinking about it like, man, my kids are going to do the exact same thing to me with Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's funny.
But in reality, you're living it and you're like, well, no one else is running a business focused on Bitcoin. No one else is buying Bitcoin at this time. Like, it does take, like my dad worked his ass off. It takes gumption to actually go for it and find it and see it. And I think it's cool to hear that, I don't know if it was Bitcoin related, but your pseudo pessimistic general state has been flipped a bit more optimistic.
And it's maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a little woo woo in some sense, but I don't know if my reality changed because my attitude changed. And that's also when I discovered Bitcoin, or if it was the discovery of Bitcoin that changed my attitude, but a lot of things happened at the same time. And I find that the more positive and happy that I am, the more of that I'm met with by the world. It's kind of like your vibrational frequency is being mirrored to you in the world around you. And, I heard someone say, I don't know, 10 years ago, and I don't know where this was, it could have been on YouTube. It's like, if you look in the mirror and you think to yourself, I'll smile when I see my reflection smile, you've got it backwards. You need to smile first. You need to be happy first before you get that reflected back to you. And so for me, I don't really know what took place first because a lot of things changed for me at the same time. Like, I found Bitcoin. A month later, I received a license from the state of California, which was like a very vindicating moment for me in my life, especially getting a lot of shit from like, my high school teachers and friends' parents, because I developed an affinity for cannabis when I was in high school, which part of that also was because my mother married a psychiatrist and got involved in pharmaceuticals. She was taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills, and I watched it just absolutely wreck her. So I kind of had the thought process of, well, like if you can drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes, you can take all these wacky pills, like why can't you smoke this plant, right? And so then I lost my mother at 20 years old. She committed suicide from a fatal dose of a barbiturate because she was so depressed. She wasn't solving the underlying problem that was causing her discomfort. And so for me, producing cannabis was kind of like a revenge in some ways, or like, every time I would bag a pound and sell it into the market, it was kind of like an FU against big pharma. And I just wanted to provide another alternative that I deemed to be safe and rather benign. Like I've never smoked weed and woke up the next day and felt terrible or like done anything crazy or whatever. And so that was kind of what like led me down that path. Kind of forget the point there, but yeah, I was like,
did you feel like you were solving the underlying problem, or weed could solve?
I didn't, I thought it was just like corruption in the world or whatever. Now I understand that it was just broken incentives from the monetary system. And so I used to think that it was like fighting big pharma, but now I think what I'm doing is actually pushing towards solving the underlying problem, and the reason I'm here today is because I spoke out. I did the very brutally uncomfortable thing, which was hard for me to do. Turned my camera on, walked in laps in my greenhouse and started talking about Bitcoin. I did feel like having a 100% Bitcoin allocation was helping to affect the change that I want to see in the world. And so I've kind of had to go through some personal development and growth, and like, kind of it's uncomfortable in some ways. Like we're wired to want to be socially accepted. And so I and also in my younger years with my parents' divorce and what happened with my mother, and I was kind of suffering with, drinking too much, I really retracted. And now I'm like kind of coming back into my own, if that makes sense. And so with that, like the Bitcoin journey, and I've heard this from so many other people, is like very healing and empowering in a lot of ways. And I find that to be a really beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know the language of low time preference or first principles thinking, and really started being able to analyze the rest of my life of, okay, these are the symptoms. What's the core problem? And maybe it's being taught, maybe people just don't understand, but like, that's such a powerful way to view the world, is to fix the underlying problem. And so much of what we have, and I think you could, I mean, a lot of all the problems in the world generally are fiat monetary problems at their base.
Which sounds crazy to people who haven't gone down the rabbit hole.
Well, the reason to keep fiat money, like one of the core reasons is, theft, all that stuff. But the core steelman argument is you need flexible money to be able to step in when there's problems. So you need a Band-Aid to cover the symptom of the problem, is the core reason to have the problem in the first place. And so that stems, we live in this world of that. And I guess it seeps into our mindset where we don't really look to the core of the problem, because it's a long ways to look to the core of the problem. I mean, in the understanding of Bitcoin, I've spent so many hours trying to understand the fiat system, to the point where I understand it better than anyone else I know. And every time you step, it's like, oh, wait, euro dollars? What are euro dollars? Wait, so how do you calculate the M2? How do you know how much money? Like you just can't really get answers. You just keep going down this rabbit hole, and it can consume you until you find this rock of purchase, this solid thing that is Bitcoin. And then, I mean, if money's the core problem, you don't look at money, it's going to be hard to solve the rest of the problems of your life, because you're going to be continuously dealing with debasement and the problems of that. And so when you can find that rock, when you can find that stability, when you can find that thing that I just have this, I don't worry about it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think where my money goes. I can just build and live my life, and hopefully this thing appreciates. It's a pretty core, solid thing to build on, and you can go so much further when you have a steady base.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, I've thought a lot about this. It's this immovable object that when you tether yourself to it financially or ideologically, you can now see the volatility in the world. But when you're flying around in this realm of everything, it's hard to make sense of anything. And that for me is been super powerful. In some sense, it's almost like, you step out of the matrix. It's like you're Neo and you could see the writing on the wall. It's like I look into the world and I can see all this economic activity and these incentives and why people are behaving the way that they are. And then I'm over here just with my Bitcoin, just in pure bliss.
That's the most amazing thing, though, is you see what it's done to you.
Yeah.
And you're like, look, I don't think everyone's going to go down this insane understanding of it as I have, but there's this subtle bit of that solidity, that unchanging system that you can now build from, this stable foundation. And I think from that, you get at least seeping in of all the things we're talking about, of all the things that we had to think about differently from learning about Bitcoin. We dove in full on. We really attacked things. But those things seep in a little bit just because the baseline has changed. And so if those things seep in a little bit for 8 billion people, the world just gets so much different. And I just get, yes, there's going to be some calamity, some teardowns of the current system that causes volatility in whatever sense. And that is absolutely scary. But I think that's what people are focused on when they're depressed, the direction we're going, where when you have that strong base to stand up and you could pick your head up out of the water and look around and see the future we're going towards, hopefully what we're fighting for.
Yep.
It gives you a lot of drive to want to build more. Because
it does.
You're like, I want to really benefit. I want to really enjoy the world that's coming.
And see and be around long enough to see the change. Yeah. Gosh, it's such a big deal. And Bitcoin, I hear a lot of Bitcoiners talk about their concern for the people who don't get Bitcoin. And maybe I've just lost my mind here, but Bitcoin is, as far as I can tell, making the world better for people who don't own Bitcoin. Like the fact that I sold my house and I sold my property and I live in a rental today, like I'm not bidding for a house here in Miami. That's downward price pressure on houses. Like you don't own a bunch of rental properties. So that's better for people who want housing. And every day more people are waking up and figuring this out, and they're selling all of their other, I don't even consider them to be assets. They're selling all their other things that they've been holding. I think literally everything on planet Earth is a liability outside of Bitcoin. But that's making it better for the people who need those things for their utility value.
Absolutely.
And it's happening. It seems like it's happening faster and faster and faster.
Yeah,
it's pretty
definitely picking up steam, getting easier. It's seeped into the consciousness of people. As we were talking about earlier, like my first 4 years of Bitcoin were all under this oppressive, antagonistic regime of what the Biden administration was doing. And I think all of us Bitcoiners, especially people who really figured it out in 2020, are like, wait, what's going on now? They're like, we want to fight something.
Yes.
And, you know, we're fighting Bitcoin treasuries and paper Bitcoin, and like they're taking over Bitcoin. And I mean, if there's any infiltration into Bitcoin development, it's been happening. Like, there's no ignoring this stuff from the whatever CIA perspective. But like, I don't know, we don't want to get complacent, and it's such an important thing that there's no rest, but there's a moment of like, whoa, it's happening. And also it's weird that that's like kind of not reflected in the price, you know, but also it's up 6x, 7x, you know? So it's a bit of perspective when you got in. I like to say I only buy tops. Yeah. So I'll see the future when we get to another top or whatever. But it's a wild time right now. There's a lot of wanting to fight because you've always had a competitor. And I love seeing any optimism, hey, we're not complacent in saying we're winning, we're going to win. We have to win. But where are things right now? This is pretty wild to see. And I just kind of appreciate all the people who are in it with us from this beginning point, because we are in a different phase of Bitcoin now. Absolutely. And it remains to be seen what happens, but things are accelerating, going in a very different direction. One big opponent has disappeared. And I don't know, it's very uplifting for, like, we're part of this fourth turning, right? And we're like, I'm always sitting here like, oh man, things are going to get so bad over the next 5 to 10 years. Something really bad is going to happen because of these rotations through history. What if it doesn't?
That's where I'm at, you know, and being a little bit woo woo and spiritual in my ways. I'm like, you know, I'm going to stop focusing on that. Like, you know, it's all probabilistic and the future has yet to be determined. But I'm starting to not, and maybe this is that part where I don't want to be delusional, but at the same time, like, it doesn't feel good personally to be all screwed up over that. Like, you know what, I think it's going to work out well. I have this intuitive feeling, this belief that it's going to go the way that we want it to, but that doesn't mean that I'm not taking action, but it definitely just feels better to believe that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'd take the weakest bull market ever in exchange for the weakest fourth turning ever.
I like that. That's so good.
So there's a very special place called the Farm at Okefenokee. It's a 1,000 acre regenerative farm community about 45 minutes northwest of Jacksonville, Florida. The farm is a completely off-grid community. It has total food, water, and energy independence. Everything on the farm is 100% organic, and it even features wild boar and bear hunting. The farm at Okefenokee is right next to the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, where you can do camping and canoeing tours. So if you're like me and you're interested in the self-sovereign lifestyle, then you can get your own lot on the farm at Okefenokee if you tell them that I sent you. Once you get a lot, you can build one of 3 custom cabin options. So if you value freedom, self-sovereignty, and living in touch with nature, then join me and my family. We have lot number 21, and we're going to be building a cabin there starting December 2025. To learn more about the farm at Okefenokee, go to okefarm.com and make sure to tell them that I sent you.
Yo, if you're a Bitcoiner, you need the Orange Pill app. It's where you connect locally and globally with other sovereign individuals. I use it when I travel to meet Bitcoiners and find meetups. It can also help you find merchants that accept sats. No distractions, no noise, just real Bitcoiners. Download the Orange Pill app today and find your local Bitcoin tribe. Right, so traveled here with a special bottle.
Yes, sir. So about to release my 2023 Estate Pinot Noir. This is from my vineyard in Western Colorado. And I make other wines, but I only grow Pinot because, as I said before, it's the only red that does really well there. It does really well and it's unique. There's very little land around me to copy it. It's the highest elevation wine region in North America. So it's a pretty unique thing on its own. We're dry farming, so not really irrigating. We are in alluvial soil and we're producing Pinot. So it's a very lighter expression of Pinot. The acidity usually makes it feel alive. And I make it, I feel like a Pinot, like I said, I want wine to express itself. And when I say a Pinot should be made, it's more of just a reflection to a lot of Pinot is made for cab drinkers. And they're two very different wines. Pinot is delicate, very expressive. You kind of like seek into it and then it gives back. Whereas a lot of the cabs produced are kind of punchy in the face with flavor. You don't have to think about it much. It's good. I love cabs, but like they're forward. They're coming at you. Whereas Pinot kind of requires you to come to it a little bit. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I dig it. And then so people swirl it and they look at the legs. What does that mean? Why do people do that?
So that'll tell you a little bit about tannin. That'll tell you a little bit about the tannin structure of the wine. Ultimately, if you don't really know to learn about that, I don't push learning about things like that to people because ultimately you're just going to taste it and whether you like it or not is what matters. So, I don't know. I try and not push wino nerd stuff. This is how you taste it. There's a bit, it is nice to twirl it and smell it and stuff, but ultimately the sipping it is what you're really going to enjoy. And if you have a great sense of smell and love smelling it, give it a twirl and smell it. But like I said, the two things that matter in wine is, does it taste good and how well do you feel afterwards?
I like how down to earth and relatable you make the whole thing. Cause it can kind of be almost an intimidating thing where it's like, but I don't know what any of this means, but if it tastes good and you like it, that's what's important.
Absolutely. As I've said, I mean, the two things that I spend my life doing, wine and Bitcoin, both of them are unapproachable for the normal person. For Bitcoin, I've had this buddy who was really into crypto or Bitcoin and he went crazy and he just keeps freaking talking about it and he won't shut up and everything's about it and he keeps bringing it up and I just want him to shut up and I don't understand it and I can't really get into it. And with wine, I don't have the language because there's definitely a wine jargon to understand what you're talking about at all. There's the classism of I can't afford to like wine. And there's a lot of talking down people. Like, I don't know. There's a weird deference and elitism within wine. And a bit of it is, I can't afford to like wine because I can only afford the cheap stuff that makes me feel bad because that has all these additives. So it's sad to me because there's so much good wine out there and it's such an interesting culture. And as far as learning about the simple things of this wine tastes good with this meal, just taking the moment, taking the breath and taking a bite of this food and a sip of this wine and watching how they meld. And that's a bit of something lost in American culture, I think, is we can appreciate good food, but how often do we really take the time to enjoy a good meal just for the meal's sake? And that's kind of the benefits of wine and drinking is it elevates those moments and kind of can separate them from the moment, the moments before or the experiences. And yeah, it was that really good bottle. It was a really good conversation. It elevated the food, but all of those and a little bit of the buzz kind of just changed those times and really elevate those experiences. Because ultimately life is kind of just, there's a lot of day-to-day things that we forget over time. But in your memory, you kind of orient your memories and your perception of your life based off the big things that you remember. And so you can elevate these really positive that otherwise would be small meals or experiences, conversations, whatever, with a nice glass of wine. And if it is made with a lower intervention style without a ton of additives, you're not sacrificing the next day. So as I said, for everyone, alcohol is a balance. You have to find yours. For some people, that's 0. But if you're not having as much sacrifice, you can focus on the positives and use it to elevate your life. Some escape is good.
Yeah, it's like a ritual of some sort, or a moment to. It's like a thing you can do to help celebrate the moment and really bring us into the presence. You know, I find personally I struggle with staying present. I'm very forward focused, always focused on the things that I need to be doing in the future so I can make sure that I preserve the quality of existence that I want to take care of my family. And and I struggle with that. It can take me out of the moment. And so, yeah, well, I really appreciate having you here. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for having me.
That's tasty.
So I think the coolest thing is, so this wine specifically, of all the wines I make, this is what I grow myself. And it's available for pre-release now. And I'm literally just waiting on labels. So it's for sale, but it'll be out in a few weeks. And for a lot of people, you'll want to delay shipping till the end of the summer, because especially wines without a ton of preservatives are going to be a little bit more affected by the heat. I'm not heat stabilizing or cold stabilizing this wine. So it's sort of coming soon. If you're in a cool environment, you can get it as soon as I get labels. But the meat of this is my life. This is my land. This is my family's heritage.
Yeah.
And I get to bottle that.
Yes.
I get to bottle that essence.
Well, you're not diluting the quality. You don't have, with the Bitcoin Treasury and the attitude, you're incentivized to just keep doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that to be really special. And I would love to see more of that in the world.
Absolutely.
When you say, oh, well, I could expand my business, but then I got to compare that deployment of capital to what Bitcoin would yield.
Which honestly, is the 0% chance. Because if I plant a vineyard, I'm waiting minimum 5 years, likely 7, to see the beginning of return on that capital.
Yeah.
What? No, I'm
Totally.
Compared to Bitcoin in 5 years, get out of here.
Yeah.
So, there's, like I said, with some investment, you have to keep investing in your business for it to exist, and you need cash flow. And a lot of me building this business is building the life I want, and having this special thing to, I share my family's land, lifeblood, existence with people on their nicest dinners and enhance their relationships. That's a really special thing to have.
It gives me goosebumps just hearing that.
So yeah, I have no desire to dilute that. And also it's a bad investment to really do that. And I could grow in the sense of bringing in more grapes from other growers. Ultimately, I think the core of what I want is just to produce Pinot. And I think there's a lot of value in being known as the great Pinot producer from Colorado who's bringing on Pinot to the highest elevation Pinot to the world, right? So I don't want to diversify my portfolio of wine in the long term. To get started out, I got to have a bunch of stuff to bring people in, have some cheaper wines. Cheaper is, I guess, a bad word, but easier entry price wines. And there's no expanding the Pinot in a cost-effective way. So it's just, let me just spread this, bring it to great people, and share that. And what a life benefit, man. It's not, oh, I like your content. People maybe like my memes or whatever education I do. But
yeah,
in the end, it's I want to preach this positivity, this connectiveness, taking a breath, enjoying the moment, and elevating these life experiences that we've like lost to the TV for family dinner or to crappy food from inflation. There's something special about kind of bringing that back, and wine is a bit of a glue factor to bring it in, elevate all these disparate elements, and having it be, as I said, my core, like this is my family's legacy, my dad's legacy, planting these grapes 20 years ago, bringing it on. That's a pretty special bond to like share with your customers that become friends, that you share meals with. And there's a lot of benefit from people like growing their own food or raising their own cattle, or that's a bit of a stretch for most people, but knowing their rancher, buying from a farmer's market, knowing their farmer, knowing the wine producer is the same vein, and being that producer is you kind of just get really cool relationships that way.
Yeah, and being able to just maintain, you like continue to do something that you're passionate about, and not have that fear that you're going to not be able to do it anymore, I think is a special thing. It's like a sailor quote comes to mind: "The road to serfdom is working exponentially harder for a currency growing exponentially weaker." And you're incentivized in the fiat world to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger and take on more debt and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's just not really sustainable. And so to be able to continue to do what you're doing in a sustainable way is a pretty special thing. Mm-hmm. And you're clearly very passionate about it.
Yeah. And I'm honestly like more passionate about all the things that come with wine than the wine itself. Wine is amazing, but I'm not drawn to it in the way that most winemakers would be. I got into making wine because it was the right opportunity. It made sense. I always kind of thought low time preference, even though I didn't have the vocabulary for it. And it forced me to move home at 25 and start building the life I wanted, as opposed to I always thought I would move home at 40 with a wife and kids. And,
yeah.
So it started me on this path, but it's interesting being connected with wine and Bitcoin because of the scarcity asset of wine. Vintage wine, each specific vintage, this 2023 Pinot, is more scarce than Bitcoin because it's consumable. There's a temporal aspect where it will get worse will get better and then get worse over time. Each time you drink it is different, and that's kind of reflective of like how time is infinite, but our time is the most scarce thing, more than Bitcoin, right?
Yes.
And there's always the next moment. There's always the next vintage, but appreciating what you have is so paramount to a good life. And, you can always get another bottle of wine. You can't always get that bottle of wine again. Right. And so it forces you to step into that moment of, I'm never going to drink this wine again, or I'm never going to have this exact moment again. And I think that's super powerful in this world of like, I get caught up in waiting till Bitcoin moons and I can afford to live the life I want. And I'm sacrificing so much in the moment because I don't want to spend my Bitcoin that I personally, and I've met a lot of other Bitcoiners that kind of get trapped in thinking about the future too much and sacrifice the present. And it's always a hard balance, right? But it's probably the most important thing we can really dedicate our lives to is that balance of enjoying the present and sacrificing for the future.
Yes. I love that. I had to deal with that a little bit myself over the last year. I did a lot of traveling, going to Bitcoin conferences. And then when Robert invited me to move here and work with him on the show, I had to deploy some Bitcoin to do that. I heard a quote, I forget who said this, but someone said a lot of people, or most people in the world today, spend their time like it's limitless and their money like it's limited. And the exact truth is the exact opposite is the truth. And that was a real big one for me, and I had to make the decision. Do I want to just stay in Humboldt County and just hold on to my Bitcoin, or do I want to do something with my life? Like, I only get one life, and I'm using Bitcoin to get more out of my life. I'm not using my life to get more Bitcoin. And so that reframing really helped me, because I dealt with that for a while. I was really conflicted, like, oh my gosh, over the last 2 years or year and a half, like there's going to be a time I'm going to need to move. Might need to sell some Bitcoin to do that. And it was like, that's a painful thing to like go through. But yeah, it's real. You'll never get your time back, but you can get Bitcoin back.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the price.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a period of time where you do need to dedicate your life to getting more Bitcoin. But it sounds like you and I are maybe in a similar phase where we're kind of like, hey, we've been really focused on this for 4 or 5 years. There's always like this cycle's not the top, so why would I take some out now? So you're waiting on Bitcoin and letting the Bitcoin price dictate your life a bit. And I'm in a similar boat to you where I'm like, my goal of this cycle is to, whether there's cycles anymore, but like this period of my life is to get debt free while maintaining as much Bitcoin as possible. And the debt I have is I'm holding Bitcoin over time would massively outperform that. Why it would be totally stupid to sell Bitcoin to pay off debt. But living debt free, living without a monkey on your back is, I mean, insane after you bet everything on this thing.
Yes.
And then you double down by not paying off your debt to buy Bitcoin.
Yep.
And riding that. And yeah. So anyways, it's this weird transition phase that I think a lot of people go to of like, I'm sacrificing to stack more, switching to why am I sacrificing life? Life is the most important thing, to stack more Bitcoin because it'll be worth more in the future because I can live better in the future. Like, at a certain point, if you don't start living good now, you're not going to live better in the future.
That's well said. So where can people get it?
Yeah, so I ship all over the United States from peonylanewine.com, PEONY. And normally I've always sold my Pinot for $99. And this 2023 vintage, 2 years after our freeze out, all the vines were super productive, all kind of in their young prime, producing really well. So I got this bumper crop of incredible grapes that, like, not only is this the most Pinot I've ever had, it's also the best Pinot I've ever made.
It's like so smooth and clean tasting. And I haven't had a sip of wine in like, I don't know, 8 years or something. So I don't have any direct comparison, but I have drank a lot of wine in my life. It tastes clean.
Thank you. Yeah. So all my wines, that's the number one feedback I get is I just feel clean after drinking it.
Yeah.
Feel clean after drinking a lot of it. You could feel clean after drinking a sip.
Doesn't have like no chalky flavor. I don't know if that's a thing, but I associate that with like red wine. There's like I don't know if chalky is the best word, but
so like your mouth drying out
a little bit. Yeah, this is not. It tastes, I don't know, wet is not the right, maybe that's, but it's like, it doesn't have that dry, chalky taste.
So what you're experiencing is, it's not a high tannic wine. So you experience tannins by your mouth drying out. Like if, say you bit like a acorn or something.
Okay.
Your mouth dries out. High tannic wine has that grippiness. There's tannins in this. There's tannins in all wines, but there's different expressions of it. And then the liveliness that you're expressing is the acidity. So that's from the high elevation. And then the fruitiness is, as far as like, it's a really expressive, fruity, like vibrant, fruity wine. That's also the altitude. So
yeah. And the fact that you're close enough to you're in a riverbed where you're not watering all the time. So you're sitting in that generative queue, which is giving a more juicy, tasty grape.
Yeah. So we're still 20 feet above the river, maybe 30 feet above the riverbed, actually. So those roots do have to go super far down to get to the water table, but they are constantly incentivized. It's all about incentives to continue spreading, to continue finding new sources of nutrients, as opposed to being stuck at the top. Like most grapes grown are drip irrigated because they have to be, because they don't have enough water.
Wild.
So anyways, doing a pre-release on this wine, at least until I get labels in a few weeks, of $49, and that'll go up as soon as I get labels, but available for sale now and shipping all over the US except for people in Utah.
And what's the website?
PeonyLaneWine.com.
Fantastic. Yeah. And your Twitter is?
My Twitter is at Ben Justman. And then you can find me on Nostr as well. Ben Justman at primal.net.
Fantastic. Well, Ben, thank you for making the trip here to Miami. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I've been looking forward to it actually over the last week or two, because as a prior cannabis cultivator, I was like, can't wait to talk to this guy. So thank you. I'm very grateful. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.